too late and pen another verse. Music is my therapy.
Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to this, your first Monday night F1 fan show live pit stop of the season. Race 1 in the books. We've had our first surprises, our first shocks, our first twists and our first turns. And now we are here to break it all down for you and also invite you, the viewer, whether you're watching live or watching on catch-up, we invite you to get involved and have your say. These shows, this platform can't operate without you, the viewer. So if you're watching live, let us know what you made of the first race of the campaign. If you're watching on catch-up, please do likewise. We are, of course, also on all podcast platforms. You just need to search F1 Fan Show Live and you should see it. And I can see from our downloads, many of you found our season preview on Friday. A record number for the F1 show downloaded. So great stuff. I'm sure the lads will be delighted to hear that. And yeah, welcome aboard this journey. Let's kick things off with some comments. We've got Matt Stannard. Good evening all. Looking forward to hearing your views of the race. And he's in the car. So he's going to love hearing the aficionados intro. Well, let's not keep Matt in suspense too much longer. You know him as Steve. I know him as Steve. But really, he is the F1 aficionado on the Talking Town platform. Mr. Thompson. Mr. T, how you doing?
I'm very well. Yourself?
I am good. The first race is in the books. We're waiting for Neil to join us. Some things change, but the more they change, the more they stay the same.
The more
correct?
they stay the same. That's bang on.
So Neil will be with us at some point. I can't say when, and I can't say where, and I can't say at what point of the show, but he will be with us, I do believe. Joe, what a weekend of racing. I don't really know where to start. Let's start with some news. I think that would be the best place to start. Okay, so news. Williams retained Jamie Chadwick in Driver Academy 2022. Steve, obviously Williams is a team close to your heart. For the new fan among us, like myself, what does that actually mean?
They've got a few junior drivers because they've got their own driver academy. People like Jack Aitken, who has been there for a good couple of years now.
He stepped in, didn't he, last year? When
2020.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Yes, he had a race in 2020. In a way, he was responsible for Russell not winning that race because it was his crash that sort of started the chaotic finish.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, Jamie Chadwick is a very talented driver. She is double W Series champion, which is the women's open cockpit racing series. Yep. Double champion. She's back in it for a third year this year with Jenna Racing, which is the new team set up by Caitlin Jenner. Okay. And she is she's stayed as part of the Williams Academy, which is good because she's a talented driver. Obviously, big aims there to be getting into Formula One. And I hope she can, because she is a talented young driver.
Do you think she'll be the first female F1 driver?
Well, there have been female F1 drivers before. I think the early 90s was the last time. Yeah. There was Leila Lombardi. She was in Formula One, and there was another one in the 50s. There's been a few.
Okay, I didn't realise.
Yeah. So I think the last one was in the early 90s, driving for Brabham. So it's certainly been a while. I would like to say so. The trouble is, it's tricky because Formula One doors open and close very, very quickly. And this is her third season now in W Series. It'd be nice to see her sort of push out and get to other series and other Formula.
Okay. All right.
So I hope she can.
Perfect. Adam Blamplay, good evening all. Not good for us McLaren fans. Hopefully we can make it back to the front ASAP. Also, Regs Work should be a great racing. We've got that coming up. We've got some good talking points coming up. Harry Derbyshire, what a race. Really enjoyed it. The new regs are good. Like the way we have closer racing. Before we get into the talking points, such as the new regs, two drivers. We'll start with one of them that was returning, albeit I think only one off, Nico Hülkenberg. How did his race go, Steve? How did that fare?
It started off okay. He was back in, super sub, and he was instantly quicker than Lance Stroll. So he qualified ahead of his teammate.
Wow.
I can't remember
What does
where
that
he
do
finished.
to the dynamic? Sorry to cut across you. What does that do to the dynamic of a driving team when the super sub is faster than the main driver?
Lance Stroll, he couldn't have taken it well because I mean, Aston have got off to a pretty poor start anyway. That car did not look good. It didn't really make much of an impact in pre-season testing. They're one of the teams we were hoping would have really improved over the winter, and they haven't. So. And then for Hulkenberg to come in and suddenly be quicker than Stroll. And he had a pretty good race. He kept his nose clean. They never looked like scoring points. There were a few teams in that race that never looked like scoring points. Aston, one of them, unfortunately. So, obviously, he'll be out of the car now. Seb will be back in the car, hopefully for Saudi Arabia if he tests negative. So Stroll will have someone else faster than him, no doubt.
Sorry, I just had my 2-year-old come into the office. He is he wants to draw. He wants to draw before bed, and he's like, "Dad, a draw, Dad, a draw." So if you can hear that in the background, I do apologise, particularly for our audio listeners. But hey, toddlers will be toddlers. And talking of new drivers, the name's escaping me. New driver replaced Mazepin. Steve, help.
Kevin Magnussen,
how was K-Mag's race this weekend?
Oh, it's so good to see him back. A couple of weeks ago, he didn't even know he'd be racing in Formula One again. He's called in to replace Mazepin in all of the fallout in the wake of the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
Yep.
It's clear from the get-go that Haas have got a good car. They just needed to get to the bottom of the reliability issues, which they did do for Bahrain. He's quicker than Mick Schumacher all weekend. He puts it in 7th in the grid, ahead of a Mercedes. And he finishes 5th. Obviously, he was helped by that late drama for Red Bull, but he finishes 5th for Haas. So he scored more in one race than Haas have managed in the last 2 years.
Wow, that is incredible.
And I think it's only the 5th time that a Haas car has finished in the top 5, from what I was seeing. So I love a good stat, and that was a good stat.
2 questions come out of that for me to ask you as our aficionado. One, am I to expect K-Mag to be faster than Mick Schumacher all season? Is that something that I should be expecting?
I think it will ebb and flow a little bit. I mean, out of the two of them, I would expect Magnussen to be the faster one. He's more experienced. Well, he's got years of.
Okay.
Because he made his debut in 2014 with McLaren, so he's been at big teams. He's driven. He's never really had a go in a decent car because the 2014 McLaren was awful. And then he was out for a year. Then he came back with Renault. That wasn't a great car. And then he came back with Haas. And the cars there were always sort of solid midfield. And you'd like to say it's going to be a solid midfield again. I think Schumacher will get up to speed. He had an incident. He spun the car around after after Ocon hit him yesterday. Good rescue by him. He did a 360 and just carried on. I think it will ebb and flow a little bit. Schumacher takes a little bit of time to get warmed up. I think he will do in the coming races. And it's going to be, I said, the intra-team dynamic is going to be very interesting this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second question that came out of that, for me, my lights just decided to go for a little catapult, so I will disappear in just a second to rescue that. But while I do that, can you answer the second question, which is 10 points already for Team Haas. Was that drive from K-Mag and the points return a Yuki Tsunoda moment from last year where you burst out of the gate in a ball of light and you look really good and people like me put you in the fantasy lineup and then you do nothing, with all due respect, for the rest of the year? Or do you think that team have the credentials and the capabilities to sustain points finishes?
It's tricky. I mean, I expect him to be fighting for points for a majority of the season. Obviously, development throughout the course of the season is going to be a massive, massive part of it. Coming from race 1, you can't really look too much into it. You get an idea, but Red Bull had a double DNF, which obviously helped Haas and it helped the guys behind them massively. The Ferrari power unit does seem to be the class of the field right now because, you had so many Ferrari power cars towards the front. You had both the Alfa scoring points, you had Kevin Magnussen, Mick Schumacher wasn't far out of it, and of course it was a 1-2 for Ferrari. Whereas Mercedes, you had Mercedes 3rd and 4th, luckily they lucked into that podium, and then the rest of the Mercedes cars didn't score points. So I think the Ferrari is going to be a big help to Haas over the course of the year, but they need to sustain this, they need to keep up this development. with a budget cap, that could help them. But that midfield is insanely close.
Talking of, well, this is it. But it's only race 1, and that will do you imagine that will thin itself out as we go? Do you think it's going to be a really competitive midfield race from first race to last race?
I think it will be very close for a majority of the season. Yeah, Adam said it there. Yeah, they only got 5th because they retired. But even so, he would have been 7th, and that for Haas is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, just points for Haas is amazing. Just to be off the back row for them is brilliant now. And you can see how much it meant to Gunther Steiner into the team. But I think that for a majority of the season, this is going to ebb and flow in midfield because there are going to be circuits that come to Haas. There are going to be circuits that come to Williams because they were looking pretty good, especially in the hands of Alex Albon. Not so much Latifi, he struggled. I have no doubt that McLaren will get to the bottom of their problems and can get themselves back up there. They've done it before. They'll do it again. Aston Martin as well. So it's going to come down to who can really nail this development and just iron out any reliability issues.
Well, this is it. And McSauceman, what do you make of McSauceman's point here? Haas can be in the race for 4th in constructors if they can keep up with mid-season upgrades.
I reckon so. The trouble is with Haas, they're up against these teams that have been in Formula 1 for a lot longer than they have. They've seen more regulation changes, like the likes of McLaren, who find themselves in the midfield now, Williams, who are getting up there again. These teams have been around a lot longer. They've got personnel much more experienced. But the good thing is Haas have got a lot of people on board now from the Ferrari works team. So they've got people there who know how to make an engine and who can keep that engine up. So it's all going to be chassis. Yeah, team to watch, definitely Haas. Definitely. I think Schumacher's only going to get better. He's a bit more cautious than Mick than K-Mag. K-Mag's very much, he hasn't changed his style. Just balls to the wall, go
Metal
for it.
J says, more ruthless driving style than me.
Absolutely.
Adam, K-Mag's result hurts. Seems us and has have switched. Louis Fennant, evening everyone. What a race! What the first race of the F1 season. Yes, absolutely. Coming up, we've got obviously Charles Leclerc wins the race. We'll talk on that. We've got Ferrari back on top. Mercedes weren't sandbagging. Double DNF for Red Bull. Alfa Romeo bemoaning Bottas. All still to come. Well, joining us now is our other co-host, the man we all know and love as Mr. Positivity. He's finally here. 12 minutes into the show. It's Neil Moles.
Wake up to the wow. Wake up to the money, turn me right on. You look like you got just with no lights on. I'm Superman that spin like a cyclone. Fit check, spin like a cyclone. Wake up to the money, turn me right on.
Yeah, but we're crap. We're not going to dominate any team.
Good evening, Mr. M. How are you?
Not too shabby.
Good man. Thank you for joining us. How are you feeling, first and foremost? Friday, obviously, you weren't feeling the greatest.
Yeah, a little better.
Good man. You're sounding better,
You sound better,
Steve.
yeah.
You're sounding better. Let's
I'll
kick
take
things
that
off
as a win.
with the regs, because we've had some comments in the chat already, and I know you brought that to our WhatsApp group. Adam, regs works, so should be great racing. Harry Derbyshire, the new regs are good, like they were closer racing. What do you make of the new regs and the racing then, Neil? And I'll bring you, Stephen, in a second.
Yeah, well, I brought it to talk about because the cars seem to follow quite well. They seemed a bit of a handful in the slow corners, in which was expected. None of them really have them finely tuned yet. They're still getting their heads around them, but yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, Steve, what do you make of the new
Yeah.
regs?
Absolutely. The cars look a little more sluggish, which again, they had to be expected, but it was great to see so many good battles. DRS was very, very effective. Just get rid of DRS, I think. But
You're not a
the
fan
cars,
of DRS?
I'm not a fan of DRS. Artificial overtaking, not a fan. I've never been a fan of it, unless it benefits George. But it's they did well. I mean, yeah, we got the intended result: closer racing, some good fights, and a closer field. So yeah, I think it's got off to a pretty good start.
Okay, talking of good starts, that's a nice little segue into our first race winner, Charles Leclerc. Leclerc, I can never pronounce anything, so I do apologise, Charles. But he wins the race. Is that our first surprise of the season, Steve? Was it a surprise? I know you both loved the Ferrari car on Friday's show, so.
I think if you were coming to me after the end of last season and said that it'd be Ferrari winning the first race, I wouldn't have believed you. After pre-season testing, I don't think it's a surprise. I think it became quite clear Ferrari were giving it their all and weren't sandbagging. And more importantly, that car looks absolutely bulletproof. So many cars have had reliability issues either in pre-season testing or the race. Obviously, Red Bull and Alpha Tauri.
Yeah.
That Ferrari, I can't think of any problems. So,
what did you make of the race from Charles, Neil? Did you obviously you won the race, so you can't criticise it too much? But I haven't done my F1 fantasy team. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do it tonight. Ooh. Is he a driver you think I should be putting in?
100%. Yeah, I went for Sainz because I believe he can still. I believe he can still do it, and it was Charles. You know, we all know that Charles Leclerc is a top driver. He's really quick, but I think he can go off the boil sometimes. Where I think Sainz, you know, he picked up the second place. I think he's Mr. Consistent, and that wins you championships. So we'll see by the end. I also have had a little bit of a like last season that they're going to do well. I have Ferrari as my chosen team, and obviously I said I had Sainz. I just think they're going to get me good points. Whereas, yeah, and the budget cap is that is involved in it. With Leclerc is more expensive, so, and then I went for Verstappen, so I had to, make a bit of space.
Well, this is it. I'll just drop it for those that haven't seen it. The F1 Fantasy League. I'll drop it in the chat now for you if you want to join it. If you're listening on audio, it'll be in the description. Watching this back on catch up, it is a pinned comment in the replies. I'm yet to do my team. I'll do it after the race. Ferrari is the constructors team that Neil's gone for, Steve. Mm-hmm. Out of all the teams, are they going to be the most consistent? Are Ferrari back? Is what I'm asking you, I guess.
I think so. I've got them as well. Yeah, I think this is the good thing with Ferrari, like you said, Neil. Carlos Sainz, he's so consistent. He might not always be as on the pace as Leclerc was. He was the first one to admit this weekend that it wasn't brilliant for him because he was consistently slower than Charles all weekend, or most of the weekend. On his day, I think he will be quicker than Leclerc, and this is going to keep Ferrari on their toes as well because they're going to have to now manage this sort of mini rivalry between the two of them because they found themselves, or they could well find themselves in a position that neither of them have been in before, with these two drivers fighting for their first title. Obviously, it's very early days, but neither of these drivers has been able to fight for a championship before. You know, and it seems that Mercedes aren't the team they were, so they're going to have to fight Red Bull if they can sort out their reliability issues. But Ferrari are definitely back.
Ferrari are definitely back, says Steve. I want to jump now, if I may, Stephen, to a segment we love on this show. It is called Bemoaning Bottas. Can you bemoan Valtteri Bottas this week?
Nope. There was a moment. There was a moment at the start of the race where I thought Bottas had gone full Bottas because he started 6th, and then he dropped way down the order at the start, out of the points, and I thought, yep, there we go. The man is back. And
it was a poor start.
It was an awful start. And he just got absolutely swamped, didn't he? And then he found himself back up there. He did, I think, an ideal race. He kept his nose clean. He wasn't really, he wasn't too flash about it. He just did the job. He was consistent. He was quick. And he got that car to 6th. And I think the Alfa is actually looking pretty good, considering the issues they had at pre-season testing. They're a team to watch.
Alfa Romeo. How do you rate Alfa Romeo's chances this year? I mean, in particular, Neil, Valtteri Bottas.
Well, they were one of those on our last episode was a team that I said was going to be near the back. So that they shocked me a little bit. But Haas, I said, were going to do quite well. And they seem to be up there as well.
Ferrari-powered teams did very well.
I have no idea whether Zhou is going to keep going, but because we know what happened last year with our other rookie, and but he was solid. He was nowhere near Bottas, but with the experience Bottas has, you're not expecting it straight out of the box, are you? So
no. Were you surprised that Zhou picked up points like Louis was?
Sorry, go on.
I wasn't. No. Did you hear with Sky Sports how you're supposed to pronounce his name?
It's probably Zhou.
Isn't it Zhao Guan Yu or something?
Yeah, it was depending on how familiar you are with him. If you're basically best buds, apparently you can just call him Joe. If well, basically it's how it's written down is Guan Yu Zhou, but as you said, Steve, that you end up.
Yeah, you got Zhou Guan Yu. Because they were saying some people called him Guan Yu Zhou, and then on the timing things, it was Zhou Guan Yu. But there you go. He did well.
Yeah, ending in Zhu is the one that.
I just call him Z.
Yeah.
Z. Z. No, you know what I'm talking about.
Refer
Z
to him by his number.
Yeah. Whoa. What is his number?
I don't know.
24?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
24.
It's not 63 or 16, so I don't care.
No, it's 24. Well, okay, you mentioned the two Williams drivers. Talk to us about the
I
Williams.
was gonna.
Go on, Neil.
Yeah, mention that with poor old Latifi.
Honestly, this was the year I thought it went. Well, just nice to see Williams and McLaren fighting together again. It's just the wrong end of the grid. They should be there, not there. To every McLaren fan, welcome to what it's been like as a Williams fan for over a decade, apart from 2014. But yeah, the two Williams drivers, I always thought Albon would come in and do better than Latifi because Albon is a better driver. Yeah, he got it into Q2, which fair play. First qualifying in that car, which obviously still has a few issues to work out. Latifi couldn't get his tyres working all weekend, so he was consistently down the back of the order. And he didn't really do much, did he? He started the race and he finished the race, and that was all he could pretty much ask for him. But Alex Albon had a few good battles, and he was doing all right. And at some point, he was quite close to the points. I just think he did what I would have expected him to do: get the car to the end, get familiar with it, and actually out-qualify and outperform his teammate.
I feel a little bit embarrassed now, Neil, for Latifi. I'm going to be brutally honest because
it's hard not to.
He gets bypassed by everybody, as in like his own teammates. Russell better than him, Albon better than him. Whenever you look at an F1 screen during a race, you can guarantee Latifi will be 16th or under, just without doubt.
It's tricky for him.
It's unfortunate for the car has been given, but as you say, that the benchmark is your teammate, and he's been outdone pretty much every time by whoever they are.
Mm.
I want to see a little bit more from Latifi this year. I want to see something from him, Steve. You've got to push it now for me.
This is his chance, isn't it? Because he's been 2 years at Williams behind Russell, in Russell's shadow. And he seemed to be making progress because there was a few races last year he managed to out-qualify Russell. And considering Russell's reputation as, Mr. Saturday, that's not an easy thing to do. Considering Russell was dragging that car into Q3 multiple times and he got it to that front row in Belgium.
He did.
And he just seems to have gone backwards over the winter. This is his chance. Russell has gone. He's got a new teammate in who's been out of Formula One now for a year. This is his moment to really take it with both hands and prove that he can be the team leader at Williams and that he's the driver to back. And I know it's only been one race, but...
Is he in danger if he doesn't have a good season, Steve, of Williams potentially looking to replace him? Because I know you've said he brings a lot of money to the team, but the dynamic at Williams has changed now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it has, because when he joined the team, they were struggling financially because they were still owned by the Williams family.
Yeah.
And I agree with Louis. I really want to see him do well because he got death threats over the winter because he caused that crash, which obviously ended up influencing the World Championship. But
only because the FIA can do their job.
Well, anyone who sent Latifi death threats is just pathetic. There's no need. And I really want to see him do well, but he could be under pressure now. Again, one race, but over the course of the season, he could be feeling it because Albon seems to have hit the ground running as best as you can in that car. And the money is not as important now because they are quite heavily backed financially by Doralton. Money is less of an issue than it was when he came into the team. He needs to really get to grips with that car and fast to be here this time next year, I'd say.
Okay. Sandbagging. Someone please tell me what the actual living Jahibas sandbagging means as a new fan. You've both said it today. You've both written it in the WhatsApp. And I'm just seeing sandbags. I'm going to be brutally honest. And I don't understand why they're carrying around sandbags in a fucking Formula 1 car. So, Neil, help me here. What the fuck is sandbagging?
basically, it is as it sounds. Pretty much whether it's with fuel or anything, you're adding weight. You're not giving away where you are on the grid,
Why would
speed,
a team do
performance
that
wise.
in a race where points are at stake? Why would a team be doing that?
Oh no, that's the thing. We have found out that they weren't sandbagging because you would do it during pre-season because you don't want to let everyone know you've got the fastest car.
Right, okay.
It's basically all the big secret and yeah.
Right. So when you say McLaren weren't sandbagging, what you mean is during pre-season they weren't
Mercedes,
sorry, they weren't telling fibs. Right,
basically.
It's been like it for so many years, isn't it? With this Mercedes dominance, they get to the point, you turn up to Barcelona or Bahrain or whatever it is, and then Mercedes would be constantly sort of 5th or 6th on the road behind teams like Ferrari and Red Bull. And Mercedes will go, oh yeah, we're really struggling this year. Now this year could be tricky. And then they get to the first race of the season and absolutely blow everyone away. Hamilton pole, race win, 2 seconds quicker. And they go, well, yeah, you were bullshitting. You were sandbagging again. But this time, George and Lewis are saying, yeah, we've got problems with the car. And even Toto is saying there's issues and Ferrari and Red Bull are quicker. And everyone is going, bollocks. You've said this every year since about 2015, 2014. So we don't believe you anymore. It's very much boy who cried wolf. And then they turn up to Bahrain, and George is only 9th. Hamilton's, 5th? And
yes, yeah.
The only reason they actually got on the podium is because of Red Bull power issues.
Thing is, our man Russell would have been closer to Lewis in qualifying if he hadn't have messed up the first turn.
Yeah, that was gone.
It's all ifs, buts, and mabies. Obviously, he did mess it up, so he was 9th. But the way he was all weekend, he was pushing Lewis for. I thought at some points, yeah. But Lewis does what Lewis does, and he pulled out a quick lap when it was needed.
As George Russell said, Steve, greatest of all time.
No, and fair play to Lewis. He drove very well all weekend.
Me.
No, Lewis did well all weekend because again that Mercedes wasn't on the pace. George couldn't really stick with him. He dropped back a few times, and Lewis was always there fighting with the Red Bulls. So, yeah.
We've got a few questions coming in. Let's get some comments. Steve, I'll ask you, what do you think of Mercedes' tactics again from Matt Stannard onto the hard tyre, which seemed to flop?
That was dodgy, wasn't it? As soon as Hamilton came out of the pits after that stop, he just slid, and Guan Yu Zhou almost got him. Did get him, but he almost knocked into him. And yeah, that was a dodgy one. They've had a few questionable calls. I mean, Hamilton said in pre-season, "My team don't make mistakes." So, yes, they do, mate. They do.
You're so good, you cover up for them, though. That's the thing.
Telling you to do a practice start on the pit lane exit in Russia and getting you a penalty.
That was a little bit weird. With none of the tyres seemed that good. The softs burnt out quite quickly. The mediums. McLaren, I know it was when they were fully laden with fuel at the start of the race, so that would wear them out quicker. But that didn't get them much further than everyone else on the soft tyre.
No.
And then the hard tyre was just far too hard. No one had any grip on it. It is, yeah.
I know that Bahrain can be quite tricky for tyre dig, but they all seem to struggle. It's sort of like another I suppose when you've got a massive rule change like this, and it's not just the cars that's changed, it's the tyres as well, the wheels. You can effectively call the first race a bit of like an extended test because this is the first time you're going to have 20 cars on the track in anger at the same time with similar fuel levels on new rubber. So I think we found out who handled it better than others. But I think the form book has just been turned on its head because it could be completely different in Saudi Arabia in a week's time. The tyres could be worse, better, who knows?
This is it. We've got a few more comments coming in. We've got Louis Fenton. Feels sorry for Latifi. I really want to see him do well after what happened last year and what he had to go through in the winter with social media. Louis Fenton again. I thought it was going to be a blinding tactic at first. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. McSauceman. Anyone that seriously watched the porpoising in the pre-season and practicing could see there were real issues where that weren't fully solved. And
that video you sent, Neil, with the Alfa Tauri in his head doing that.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
That was the old club beat after it. Do you guys think Schumacher is showing promise? Neil, do you think Schumacher is showing promise?
I thought, well, it was hard to tell last season because one, the car was terrible, and two, he was outperforming even marginally at times, he was outperforming his teammate. And then Magnussen's come along from, being a little bit out. And yeah, he's basically just been brilliant, wasn't he, K-Mag?
Yes.
He's hungry. He showed up Schumacher a little bit. So I think Michael, especially when the commentator said he's in the points, and then was it 5 cars went past him?
Oh, I felt so sorry for him because that's the thing. You got used to seeing it last year, and you thought, well, he tried. Like when he was up in Hungary last year, when he was around the points for a while. But this year, he's got a car that can fight for points. You can maybe let 1 or 2 races go, but you're not going to want to do that too much because Kevin Magnussen's the kind of guy that doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's consistent and he is fast. He's everything Mazepin isn't.
Well, that's not hard. Last point before we close up for the evening. Red Bull, what went wrong? Is it going to be a season problem? Talk to me about this one, Steve, and I'll bring Neil in.
Fuel pump failures on both cars, apparently. One shut the car down. So Verstappen's steering went heavy and cost him second place. I was gutted for that because he was that race he had with Leclerc was absolutely fantastic. And I think they both deserved a good haul of points out of that because that was brilliant. And then Checo, poor little Checo, he can get no luck. His engine just completely seized and spun him almost into Hamilton. He almost collected him.
Is it going to be a season-long issue, though? Is it something to look out for all season long, do you think, Neil? Or Steve?
I don't believe so. I think it'll be, once the other team knows about it, it'll be, yeah. It'll mostly depend if it's something that they've gone, we can, now they know the issues there and it's something that they've seen, it's a failure in their designing. But, yeah, a team like them, I think they'll get it sorted. They haven't had it any other time, so I don't see why they won't be able to sort it.
Okay, perfect. Anything else before we depart and we reconvene next Monday? Is there a race Sunday, Steve?
Yeah, we're back in Saudi Arabia.
Ooh,
we're only there in November.
Times. What time is the race start?
That's a good question. I don't know yet.
We don't. Okay. We're watching it. We'll come back next Monday to talk about it. Anything else on the talking point before we hand it over to Steve to lead us out? Neil, anything else you want to bring to the party?
For the race.
Not particularly. It was just, basically, this was a good start in the chapter of the new regulations, and let's see where it goes from here.
Perfect. Thoughts on Alpine? Ask Louis before we leave. Neil, thoughts on Alpine?
Ocon seemed the better out of the two. I think Ocon ran the old side pods. Alonso ran the new design, and Ocon was thoroughly quicker than him all weekend. So whether Ocon's a better driver now or whether their improvements weren't improvements is yet to be seen. Okay. But they're higher up than McLaren, so.
Well, yes, bad start for the McLaren. I suppose we should touch on that.
I can't remember the last time I saw Williams ahead of McLaren and the constructors. It's only one race in, but I can take this with a bit of smug.
What went wrong for McLaren?
Brakes. Well, they had a lot of problems with their brakes, didn't they?
Brakes was one issue, but they've got a problem with balance. Just basically, the whole design seems up the Swanee, and it's just they haven't got any grip.
There we go. £5 Metal Jace. Thank you very much, Metal Jace. Appreciate you.
Thank you very
for
much.
Your time and effort hosting all the streams. Not a problem, Metal Jace. I do these shows because I love to talk sport and I hopefully bring content that you enjoy. So thank you ever so much, Metal Jace. I know the two guys here absolutely love and adore talking Formula One. So yeah, appreciate that. Steve, do you want to lead us out on that note?
First of all, thanks very much, Metal Jace. That's brilliant. It's the only time I can talk about Formula One without everyone eventually going, yeah, all right, that's enough now. Because people get me started on Formula One and wish they hadn't.
The chat is really busy. If it keeps up the way it's going, we're going to have to increase from half an hour to an hour. We have to because it's growing. The show is growing. We love to see that, don't we?
Absolutely love it. Yeah, thank you all. So yeah, I can do an hour. That's fine. I can do 3. But yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Obviously, it's great to have Formula One back, and it's great to be able to report on races again and to see how it's all going to go down. So the race starts at 6 p.m. on Sunday, so it's quite a late one. So yeah, make sure you got your coffees or your beers for that one. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back at 7:15 on Monday for the review of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
Looking forward to it. I want one-word answers before I press the button. Who's winning in Saudi Arabia? Steve?
LeClerc.
Neil?
Science.